Thank you, Soledad. It is fantastic to be a part of this celebration today and to bring you these three incredible people who are at the heart of Homeboy. We've got Thomas Vaso, who's the CEO of Homeboy Industries, Shirley Torres, the Chief Program Officer at Homeboy Industries, and Jose Arellano, who's the co-director of Case Management and Navigation at Homeboy Industries. Thanks to all three of you for being a part of this.
Thank you for having us.
I got to ask you, Shirley, you've been at Homeboy for 15 years now. And you've had so many important roles there, worked with so many people. The pictures behind you, I think, remind you of some of the people who've come through your doors. What does it mean to you to win this prize today, to hear this celebration for you today after all these years at Homeboys Industries?
It's, first of all, just humbled by being recognized and awarded for our work. And mostly, for me, it's about honoring the courage and the heroes that walk through the door, folks who have experienced things that most of us could not survive, folks that when they get to come in and come into the sanctuary of Homeboy and connect with us, we peel back the layers and listen to them, we know that they're miracles. And so I think for me, this humanitarian award is really about celebrating the men and women who have, in so many ways, continue to have the courage to keep getting up, even after they've fallen, and who continue to be hungry for a better life. And we're just blessed to be at the crossroads to receive them, to honor their resiliency, and to help them on their pathway to a better life.
Yeah, so much of what I hear about Homeboy and the language you're using, the language that Father Greg used, isn't necessarily the business language you might think when you hear something like industries. And I know, and we'll talk in a minute about the great social enterprise work you do, but hear language like really treating people like you want to be treated, about equality and respect. Father Greg talks about no one being disposable. What does that mean for you, Jose, given your work trying to manage the cases, to navigate people through the process as they re-enter the workforce coming out of prison? What's your take on what this language means, what the culture of Homeboy Industries really is?
So like Shirley was saying, about honoring people's lives, I think what happens here more than anything that takes place is that we see people as if we're seeing them for the very first time. And we see people like by seeing the truth about their lives. And the truth about their lives is that they're worthy and they matter and they're important, no matter what they've been through or what they've done. And I think by us creating a space where that can take place, by us doing that and seeing that in others, we see that in ourselves, and we create, a better world by doing so. So for me, the culture of Homeboys is we offer a bunch of different resources, but above everything, what we offer here is a space where people can be seen for the very first time without, the things they've done or without the things they've been through. And for me, that's what happened to me here. And I think when I started to see that, because I seen myself in a certain light once before, and like here being at Homeboys and having Father G tell me that I was worthy or that I mattered or that I was important, and having Shirley Torres tell me that I was somebody, it made me start to realize that I was somebody and that I did matter and that I was important. And my life began to shift because of that. And when that happened to me, I unconsciously wanted to create a space so that can happen to others. And I think it's like when we see the worth in others, we really are seeing our own worth, because we belong to each other.
Tom, Homeboy Industries was a social enterprise, I think, before people even knew what that term meant. And you were bringing this ethos and this culture we've heard from Shirley and Jose to not just serve others, but to make them part of serving themselves and helping themselves. Tell us more about how this social enterprise model works for you at Homeboy.
It certainly works much different now than it worked early in those first years when Greg opened that first social enterprise, the Homeboy Bakery. But just as both Shirley and Jose has mentioned, what we're really about is helping people heal. And our secret sauce is that we love people, we don't judge them, and we give them their first chance in life. And our businesses are an important component of making all that play out, in that, they get a chance to have a first job, a good job, a job that's worthy, a job that has dignity to it. And they work on themselves at the same time. So what's so innovative of what Father Greg started all those years ago and we're still doing today is that, with jobs, but really about healing people, combining all that together enable someone to move their life forward. And it really is very much of an innovative concept of seeing people that they are worthy, and leaning into the goodness that everybody has in themselves, and allowing them to kind of blossom and to grow through that in one organization along the way. So that's what our social enterprises mean to us. You're right, we use the word industries, but we're really a human services organization that help people. And in that, we run businesses that kind of is another tool in our toolkit to help people move their life forward.
For me, I think the language you're all using is so inspirational, in part because it's such a contrast to the division and the challenges that we see in America and around the world today. You've got the climate changing, you've got this pandemic that's one of the reasons we're all doing this virtually. You've got massive inequality happening around the world where you're based in Los Angeles, homelessness, and in so many other communities. When you look at all those challenges, all those problems, where do you think Homeboy Industries and what you do and what you have to offer, your message, where does it sort of fit in? Maybe Shirley, I can start with you.
I believe really that we're a beacon of hope for the city of Los Angeles, for the nation, for the world. Those issues that you've raised are not new to Los Angeles. We know that 30 years ago, Homeboy Industries started with a prayer during the decade of death, because we know that that it was impossible for us to incarcerate our way out of injustices, and that gang membership was really a symptom of the lethal absence of hope that young people were facing in their own homes and in communities that were essentially demonizing. And in my work experience here, I definitely learned firsthand early on that there was definitely systemic issues around this idea that we have to protect the good kids from the bad kids. And what Homeboy and what I think we stand for is the idea is that these are all our kids, and that there's no such thing. And that all of us have, if given the opportunity, have the opportunity to rebuild and to help and to really allow people to feel their worth and re-identify with the world, who folks are. And so I think for us, these issues, again, for 32 years, we've been at the crossroads of life and death. And I think that we know that the vision still has its day. We know that the day will come where we're committed to change the outcomes, specifically for young boys of color who are at the highest risk of being incarcerated, joining gangs, and dying.
Jose, I was reading in your bio that as a young kid, you were in the Gifted and Talented program. You grew up right in Los Angeles. But then your life took a different turn. And you were saying earlier that you can understand, you bring the expertise to your work of having lived through this yourself. What is it like for people watching this who might not be familiar with Los Angeles? They might not really understand what gang culture is, how big this issue really is for young men of color and others. How can you describe maybe the scale of this challenge and what it's like to go through it as you have yourself?
Yeah, so for me, just came back as a child, as a kid, I didn't want to be a gang member. That was the furthest thing from my desires in life. But my circumstances were my circumstances. And growing up, my mother was a gang member. I didn't know who my father was. All my uncles, all my male role models were all gang members. My cousins, we were all from the same gang. But growing up, I was in the GATE program, Gifted and Talented Education. I was in a marching band. I played the trumpet, and I loved school because I hated being at home. I just didn't like being at home because of everything that home was, which was, alcoholism and drug abuse and a lot of violence. And, now that I look back, mental illness, and there was nobody coming to save us from that. So, I would go to school, I would get myself ready for school, go to school. And I would also, after school, I would just hang out in the streets because I just hated being at home. But as things get progressively worse, in houses like that, and my mother, got addicted to drugs, we got a lot more poor. Our lights were getting turned off, we were getting evicted, we were moving a lot. And my mom was addicted to methamphetamine at the time, and my house was just a really negative place to be. So I would always try to be somewhere else but home. But I think looking back at my circumstances and looking back at so many other circumstances and people that we work with now and now we have a youth program, and seeing people's circumstances, I really think that some of these stories are inevitable. And because these circumstances are so dire, and so depressing and so hopeless, we're gonna have a lot more, like Shirley was saying, young male boys of color that join gangs, or that end up in a hopeless state and end up committing crimes. So just hearing like Tom and Shirley talk about inclusion, and what really began to reshape like myself and how I see things, was being a part of this. Like not only like getting the help and services here, but also like having a stake in it. Also having a seat at the table. Being a part of the greatness that happens here. It gave me a place and a purpose. It gave me a place to heal, but it also gave me a purpose to live and to invite others into that type of life. So, being here is the honor of my life. It truly is.
Well, it's a real honor to have you in this discussion today, Jose. Tom, I want to turn to you because Jose and Shirley have both pointed out that there isn't one simple solution to these kinds of systemic problems. You can't just go in and educate your way out or incarcerate your way out. You've got to do this other kind of hard work, building a community. This is something I think is pretty unique to Homeboy Industries. And maybe it's hard to even communicate when you're talking to government agencies or foundations that want to fund you. How do you describe this approach that you're taking, and why is this the right way instead of doing things like educating or trying to incarcerate your way out of the challenges that we've just heard?
Sure. And it's about radical kinship is what we also say when we talk to people. And so what we describe to, funders or government agencies is that it's a holistic approach. It's about helping people heal. It's also giving them those skill sets. I come out of the business world. And so in a crude way of business verbiage, it's like for folks that society think are unemployable, we enable them to become employable. And really what's behind that is we help them heal and help them become resilient and help them see their goodness, and then make sure their families are successful as well. And so the way we try to describe it is it takes a full effort. It takes an effort of people who sort of walked in that lifestyle, who know how to mentor and get people out of, men and women out of gang life and life of crime. It takes the professionals of mental health therapists and doctors and educators to kind of fill in what they didn't have for the rest of their life. It takes kind of the working businesses of here's how you work, here's how you engage customers, here's how you move forward. So it's that completeness that takes place, and it takes place over a long period of time. People are with us for around 18 months. And so transformation doesn't happen overnight. And that's one of the big messages we try to get across.
These are people who are coming out of prison or coming out of a gang. Is that right? Your reentry program, when you talk about 18 months?
That's right. That's right. When they come into our program at Homeboy, and people walk through our doors, and they know they want to get out of that gang lifestyle. They don't know how. We help them, and we help them transform their lives into something that's much better.
One of the things I noticed on your website is this idea of tattoo removal. I've seen, Shirley, in some of your work, this is something you worked on in the past. Maybe you can explain it for those who aren't as familiar with gangs and with why this matters. Why is this something that you offer as a service in your community? Why is it important?
As Tom has described, I think it takes a complete, and Jose has described, we offer every resource imaginable of what it takes to transform your life. And so everything here is about doses. There's not one prescription. Every single service imaginable, whether it's tattoo removal, employment services, case management, mental health, everything we offer here under one roof has really been born out of one of our folks who have said, this is what I need to transform our lives. And so for us, whether it's tattoo removal or again, one-on-one peer mentorship of someone who needs to be guided in how to really move into their healing, it really is been born out of that, and it's an option. And our population hasn't always had an option. They haven't had an exit ramp off the revolving door of incarceration and violence. And so when they come through the doors, our team understands that folks have been operating from fear, that the tattoos and the characters that they've developed have really helped them survive the streets and that life. And that's very real. And that they need to, in some ways, to teach us about that. And part of this sanctuary that we offer and this space that we refer to is really about offering folks an option and a safety that they haven't been afforded in their lives.
Let me go back to you for a second, Tom, because this idea of investing in one person at a time, it's so powerful.
Right.
But you can see people watching this who might say, but how do we scale this? You know, we've got problems in my community and in my country. And this sounds like a great local solution. How do you, as a business person coming into this and seeing the tremendous need in your community, but much broader than that, how do you think about scaling a model of kinship, a model that sees the other person and focuses on their individual needs? How can that actually solve all the big problems in the world today?
Yeah, you know, the funny thing is, you're getting a business guy giving you this answer is, it doesn't take money, essentially. It takes the mindset shift. You know, what Father Greg started all these years ago was, and it's Shirley mentioned and Jose mentioned, is seeing the individual. It's, as Greg would say, moving to the margins to be with people on the margins, and not just to be on the margins and tell the people on the margins, the poor, the demonized, how to change their life, but to be in relationship with them. And so fundamentally what works at Homeboy is that people forming relationships with each other, and that then moves their life forward. And so that doesn't take money. That just takes a mindset shift. It doesn't. So if there's another organization out there and they think they need to build all these programs and they bring all these volunteers in and all these volunteers will tell these young men how to change their life, that's not going to work. What's going to work is actually form a relationship with people who are in need, and that moves it forward. And now, without a doubt, you need to have money for the mental health therapies, tattoo removal, the classes. You know, our society has enough money out there to do that. It's a mindset shift that how do you kind of collectively move that forward and treat people as individuals.
And that may be a lot harder than getting the business model. You know,
totally.
Taking this idea of us and them and
Right.
really just blowing that up and saying, no, we're really in this together.
Right. You got to create a culture where people can thrive. It's not about a meritocracy. It's not about earning their way forward. Create a culture where they can thrive, and achievements will happen, and people will change.
Jose, I see you nodding along.
Yeah, just hearing both of them speak about who we are. I would have never imagined the life that I have today if it wasn't for this place. From tattoo removal, I'll just give you that. I used to have my gang on me 9 times, tattooed on me 9 times. You can't even see it anymore. I've had so much tattoo removal. And that's a symbol of somebody chasing death. It wasn't, I didn't get tatted up to look cool. I got tatted up because I was so hopeless. I wanted other gang members to see my tattoo so they can potentially shoot me and kill me. And we were chasing death, right? In our communities, we're chasing death, and we're going to prison because we're so hopeless and committing crime and, you know, getting all tatted up. You see the individuals with tattoos on their face, and we at Homeboys know that that's a cry for help. We know that individuals chasing death. And then we get to see the other side of that coin when they come through the doors, like myself, who doesn't have any of that no more, because now I'm chasing life. And as I'm chasing life, I want to invite as many others from our community to chase life and to thrive, as Tom was saying. You know, and I think us going through everything in society right now, to Tom's point, is it's not about just helping people. It's about being with people. You know, it's about knowing people and them knowing you.
You know, I noticed on your website that I think it's 80% of the people you serve don't have a stable place to call home, which has got to be particularly tough during a pandemic when we're all told to stay at home. What has it been like for your community, and what are your plans going forward to try to address that as an organization? Maybe I can go to you on this, Shirley.
I mean, I think this is the reason why we have kept hope alive during the pandemic and kept our doors open. We've been very blessed to have support, donor support, and men and women on the front lines who know what's at stake for folks that don't have a home, and they've rolled up their sleeves to strategically work with other partners, sober livings and places, so that we're able to afford these safety for folks. We understand at Homeboy that if people don't know where they're going to lay their head and how they're going to eat, then we don't have a chance to help them move out of survivor brain. That their backs are against the wall, and they are so busy scanning the room for danger and how they're going to live the next day, that healing then becomes impossible. Then rebuilding your life then becomes impossible. And so our teams have rolled up their sleeves to keep our doors open. We know that folks are being released at high numbers from different detention facilities during this pandemic. But we've been able to mobilize and to find those resources for our community right now.
And Tom, you've got some big plans around this. Tell us where you're going to take Homeboy Industries to try to address this particular issue of people needing a stable place to call home.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, what Father Greg figured out, and it seems so obvious, but he figured out this over 30 years ago, was to be able to get somebody to come out of gang life, you got to get them enough money so they can provide for themselves food and shelter. Because if you're not getting them money, then they're going to be running with the gang to find that money, right? And so fast forward all these years later, the core part of what our Homeboy program is we do compensate our folks to be with us all day long. So we want to get them enough money so they can buy food for themselves and they have shelter. Problem in our community though, shelter costs, rent is very high. We want to get our folks out of their neighborhoods, out of their gang neighborhoods, so they can fully thrive along the way. So one of our visions going forward is we want to build transitional housing. We, on a block just south of us here in Los Angeles, we have plans to build out a 148 bed facility that would provide transitional housing. So while someone's in our program for those 18 months, they can have a safe and clean, sober living type place to live. We know what it takes to serve gang members along the way, and now we want to provide shelter for them as well.
And let me ask Shirley and Jose, as we close out our conversation today, people watching this, they're probably, most of them, sitting at home in the middle of this pandemic. They're looking at the news and seeing a country, a world divided in many ways, so many challenges that are out there. You're working in some cases with people who have much greater challenges than any of us, and yet you're finding hope in this. What gives you hope that the future, that the work that you do can actually lead to this future we all want to see?
For me, it's being here every day, and even through this pandemic. You guys spoke a little bit about the circumstances of this particular population, and just seeing people, our staff and our leadership and Father G himself be able to return and open our doors up to the capacity that we're open inspires the heck out of me. And it shows what's possible, because this particular population, when they asked us all to stay at home, some of them didn't have homes, and some of them, the homes that they did have were unsafe to even be at, the communities they lived in. And so for our staff and our leadership and Father G himself, and for us to be able to be here and open our doors and to see those same individuals that are in hopeless environments and some of them in hopeless states come through these doors every day to receive services, to work on our maintenance crews, to keep this building clean with honor and integrity, that inspires the heck out of me, and it gives me hope.
Shirley, you grew up in this community. You've seen it change over the years. You know these challenges really personally, really well. You got these pictures behind you of people who've come through your doors. What gives you hope?
For me, people give me hope. I think all of us hold a piece, and there's the slogan of none of us are well until all of us are well, and that's never been more true. I think there's an exquisite mutuality and a palpable love at Homeboy. But everyone, as long as you have a pulse, you have the opportunity to change the way people feel, to change the way people are seen. And one of the things that this community has taught me is that money is not the only currency, and that if we minimize distance, if we're connected, if we see each other, then together we have the opportunity to change the dynamics and build healthy communities and a healthy world. And I think Homeboy is a good example of that.
So Tom, as we wrap up today, and as you think about this future, what gives you hope?
One of the things that gives me hope and motivates me and inspires me is the men and women at Homeboy who have lived that lifestyle and have changed their lives. And now they become leaders. So Jose is one of our leaders. And we have so many people like Jose in our organization who have stepped forward and actually are running the organization. So that for us, our next 25 years is homeboys, or we want homeboys running homeboys. And that kind of tells you a lot that when you invest in folks, create a thriving organization, a thriving culture, people can grow and make their life dreams come true and then help that next generation. That's what inspires me and gives me hope.
For Thomas Vaso, Shirley Torres, Jose Arellano, it is inspiring to listen to your expertise and the passion that you bring to this work. And on behalf of everybody who's watching this from around the world, congratulations on winning the Hilton Humanitarian Prize in this important 25th anniversary of the prize. You've given us all a lot to think about and some marching orders for action that we all need to take. Thank you. And back to you, Soledad.